Hello and welcome to the virtual Eclipse meetup. I'm your host, Kat Hirsch, and today is the sixth and final day of the Eclipse Oxygen webinar series. In case you missed the news yesterday, Eclipse Oxygen shipped, which was our 12th annual simultaneous release from the Eclipse community. So head on over to eclipse.org/oxygen to download a copy and find out what's part of this release. So during today's presentation, we invite you to ask questions to our presenters, and the way in which you do that is by submitting a question on the YouTube live event in the right-hand side chat box. At the end of the presentation, we will reserve 5 minutes to go through those questions with the presenter. Today's topic is Eclipse Sirius 5.0, all about UX, and our presenters are Mélanie Batz and Stéphane Begadeau of Obeo, France. Over to you.
Hi, we are Mélanie Batz and Stéphane Begadeau from Obeo, and we are here to present you how to leverage existing and new features in Sirius to improve the user experience of your designers. Why user experience matters? User experience, and notably poor user experience, is a hot topic when you are creating application. While UX is important for any digital product, it is even more important for products that are expected to manipulate a lot of complex pieces of information. Neglecting it can result in a sloppy product that people will just not use. On the contrary, developing an interaction-rich experience will drive users back to your product. User experience is how a person feels when interacting with your product. It includes a lot of factors, some that are controllable by designers and developers, and others that depend on the environment or which are just a matter of preference. These factors include design, aesthetics, usability, ergonomics, accessibility, performance, utility, and overall human interaction.
So taking care of user experience when you develop a graphical designer means that you have to pay attention when you decide in which way important information should be presented. User experience is a part of the product development process that you don't hear about unless something goes wrong. But it is something that should be an integral part of the development process, from early concepts to the final product. When you relegate user satisfaction to a nice-to-have status, it often gets left out. So integrate it from the beginning of your development.
To improve the UX of your graphical designer, you have to work on 3 different levels. First, the look of your designer. Second, the way the users feel when they interact with it. And last, one of the most important parts on its usability. The look of a product is not only the aesthetic appeal, but also how it creates credibility and trust with users and captures the spirit of what the users expect. For example, I'm not sure that we are still seeing the slides. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mélanie. Yes, I think we lost your the first slide that Stéphane was reading. So if we can just go back to that point.
Oh. This slide?
I will present
your slides.
Speak just to make sure the.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Can you switch to the slides?
There you go. Yes. So if we can continue from there, that would be great.
The next one. Okay. For example, one of the first decisions you have to make is a kind of shapes to use. Here, all the nodes are represented in the same way with a gray-purple rectangle. You can't easily determine the information displayed and you don't know how it is organized. You would have to look for details like the label of each node or edge to find out what is going on. Just by replacing the purple rectangles by explicit icons representing males or females, and by improving the layout of the diagram, you can get directly that this diagram is showing a family tree. The small details like the labels are not so important now.
Icons are a good way to organize the complexity of information that you want to display. Another way is to use good colors. One good practice when you specify designer based on Sirius is to define a color scheme and then specify a color palette from it. If you're not comfortable with user interface design, a simple solution is to select a base color for your elements and then work on variations of this color. The human eye loves consistency, so be consistent in your choice of color. Respect this advice and your product will look not only more professional, but also more comfortable to work with. As I said before, people love consistency. So when something different, it will attract attention. When you want to make sure your user will look at some important concept, you can change the consistency of your diagrams by using a different shape, a different size, or even a completely different color. You can thus have a base color and a specific color to highlight some elements and work from there with variation of those two colors.
So using icons is really useful when you want to quickly provide a piece of information graphically. One of the most interesting improvements coming with Sirius 5 is the new decorator mechanism. This new mechanism helps you manage the complexity of the information that you can display to your users by adding some additional icons to your mappings. In Sirius 5, there is three kinds of decorations. Mapping-based, you can associate the decoration to a mapping, so it will be linked to your graphical elements. Semantic-based, you can associate a decoration to a semantic element, so it will be linked to your middle elements. And generic, you can specify a decoration according to a predicate expression. For each decoration, you can specify where it will appear: north, south, northwest, southeast. And if you resize the mapping, or if there is too many, or if there are too many decorations defined on the same position, a tooltip will appear showing all the decorations.
Okay, so let's have a look at our BPM End Designer, and we will see how we made it more attractive for our end user. So first of all, we have started by defining a color scheme with three major colors. So we started with the green for the lane, the blue for the various kind of tasks and events, and finally orange for the gateway. So we've defined those colors in our palette with some variations of those colors, and we reuse them in the style of our elements, in the styles of our elements, like the lane right here. We also made sure to use a consistent set of icons. So for example, for the gateways, we are using the same icons for the mapping and for the tools, with some PNG for the mapping and for the tools, sorry. And for the mapping, we are using SVG files in order to have a better resolution in the diagram. In fact, if you are using a proper set of icons and color, you could even hide the labels of your tools in the palette and only work with the icons. So you can now use in the properties views of your element icons in the definition of your button. So for that, you just need, for example, to right-click and copy the qualified name of an icon, and then you can put it in the image expression field. So if I show now the properties view, you can see that I have a small help icon in the button. I could also remove completely the label. As Melanie said, we have also a new mechanism for decorators. So I'll just copy here a generic decoration. So it will be applied on all elements by default, but we have a precondition expression in order to make sure that it will only appear on task. And it will use a small task image, and it will appear on the northwest. So if we save, you can see that we have now on the northwest of all of our tasks a small icon that has appeared. We can also define mapping-based decoration. So this time, the decoration will be linked to a specific mapping. So we'll select the task 2. So this time, our decoration appears on some of our tasks because we're using a precondition to filter only the manual task. So here on this specific task, we have two kinds of decoration, but if we resize it, you can see that it's too small to display both decoration, and a small tooltip is available to show you all the decorations available.
Remember, users decide in just a few seconds whether your product is worth their time. That's the only opportunity you get to reel someone in. When it comes to poor user experience, the issues are noticeable. All of these problems create a negative emotional connection to the product. Your users need to enjoy interacting with your product. By working on the UX, you will introduce your grumpy users to Mr. Happy. The feel of a product is all about creating something that is a joy to use. That is, crafting positive, pleasant emotions in users as they interact with your product or react to it. So how to develop a pleasant product? You should put yourself into the user's shoes. You should think the way the user thinks. In fact, you should become a user. Remember that the developer never feels the same way the user does. You are used in Sirius to create direct edit tool, to edit labels in diagrams, tables, or trees. When you develop this kind of tool, remember that the direct edit tools are not only for editing labels. You have to create direct edit tools which are smart for your user. For example, imagine that I have a property defined in a UML class diagram, and I am an UML designer user, and I want to update the cardinality of my property. When I edit it, what I just want is to be able to change the cardinality of my property to many with a simple star. I don't want to type anything more.
Okay, so sorry. Let's have a look at this in the demonstration. So, for example, here we have an event with a time, 20 minutes, and I have a direct edit tool to change the time of the event. So if I change it, I would, for example, to 60. It only changes the 60. It does not write 60 minutes. I would have to write everything by myself, and that's not what I want. So when you're creating a direct edit tool, you can be smarter than just changing the label for the new version that the user has typed, and you can use, for example, Java services to perform shortcuts. So here I have a Java class that I've registered in my ODesign, and then when I edit the label, I can use something a bit more complicated by calling this Java class. So now if I'm trying to change this label for 30, it will directly type 30 minutes because the shortcut is now activated.
So we saw that the appearance of your product is important, and we just brought to your attention that you have to rethink the behavior of some of your tools to be smarter according to your users' expectations. It doesn't matter what your product looks like if people don't know how to interact with it. You have to polish not only the appearance of your product, but also its usability. Usability is a core concept in UX. The idea is that products have to be easy to understand and use. Bad usability breaks UX. It is about the effectiveness of a product and how user-friendly it is. It is a key component of the overall user experience. Your product must be functional and predictable.
For example, when last year we released the new property view mechanism, many users came to complain that they found it painful to create manually all the widgets for all the attributes of their e-objects, especially since they want to default behavior 90% of the time. So we've worked on that feeling and improved the usability of the Sirius specification editor to help them create easily widgets according to their domain class. In Sirius 5, we provide a new menu which offers to automatically generate for you the widget according to the types of your attributes in the meta model. Another way for you to improve the usability of your designer. A new model operation named let was also added to allow you to define some variables that you can reuse later in your model operations. With this let operation, you can now create more easily complex behavior inside of your tools with temporary variables to store some result. When you need some inputs from your user, now it is possible for you to create dialogues and wizards directly in Sirius, reusing the same specification element than the one used by the properties view description. Now, in a create element tool, you can open a dialog to let the user enter the default value of the properties of the element to create, instead of creating an empty element which the user will have to edit later.
With Sirius 5, you will now be able to reuse the same properties view definitions easily. An extension mechanism already exists for diagrams. Now we have something similar, but for properties view. Thanks to this feature, you will be able to reuse anything from a simple widget to a whole page with multiple groups, widgets, tiles, and even the validation rules. So you can now share those parts of your design between the properties view, dialogues, and wizards. You will see that it will improve drastically the maintainability of your design. On this screenshot, for example, I have defined a dialog with its own group and with another group extending the one from the properties view. I can change the title of the second group easily with any impact on the property view. It also comes with all its validation rules and all its widgets. Another mechanism was also introduced in Sirius 5 to provide to the specifier a way to customize an existing specification which it cannot modify. So you will see the power of this mechanism in our small demo.
Okay, so let's get back to the demonstration. So as I said before, you now have the ability to create very easily widget initialized by the properties of your meta model. So for that, in a group, you just have to set the domain class correctly, and then you will have this new menu which gives you the ability to create the widgets. So for example, I can create a widget for the ID, and since the ID is a string property, it will create a text field initialized with everything needed. I can create another one for Boolean, so with a checkbox widget. And a final one, I'll create one for the incoming edges in a task. So if I save and select an element, you can see that now I have a field for the ID, a text field. I have a checkbox for the Boolean, and I also have a widget for the incoming edge that we can see on the diagram. And all those widgets have already been initialized, so they are working, and you can edit all the properties very quickly. So we also have the ability to create dialogues now in Sirius. So for example, if I create a tool here to edit a property by double-clicking on it, I can select that this tool will be applied on all tasks. Give it an ID. So this is a regular double-click edit, double-click tool, and then from here I can have I can use this new feature of Sirius 5 to open a dialog. So I can set the title of the dialog, and inside of the dialog it has created two buttons and a page with a group. So the first button is to cancel, the second one is OK to validate things. This OK button will be used as default. So when the dialog is opened, if I click on Enter, it will trigger this button directly. This button will also close the dialog when I click on it, and the cancel button will roll back everything which has happened during the tool if the user click on it. Then I have a page, so I'll rename it for the edit page, which uses this group right here. So in this group, I can, for example, copy some properties from the default group of my property view, and then I can double-click sorry, I can double click on my element, and here I have my dialog that I can use very easily.
Here, the first approach was to duplicate the name widget. So it exists in the properties view definition and in the dialog. The new extension mechanism allows us to simplify this part of the design. First, we remove the name widget and the group defined in the dialog definition. And instead, we will go to the Extend tab, and we set that we want to extend the default page. Now, when we save, if we double-click on the task to open the dialog, we see that we inherit all the elements from the definition specified in the properties view. Better now, if we go back to the General tab of the specification, I can update the label expression of the page in order to show the name of the selected element, for example. And now, if we reopen the dialog, you can see that we are able to override the inherited values. Stefan will demonstrate now that it is also possible to reuse the same mechanism in wizards.
So I'll just start by copying a tool that we have already defined here. So this new tool will create an action which will allow us to simulate the export of some image or something like that. So in this tool, we have the definition of a wizard. So for the wizard, we can customize the title of the window, the title inside of the wizard, its description. We also have an expression to determine if we can switch to another page, from one page to the other, and if we close the final page. So inside we have 2 pages, and each pages will have its own group with some widgets. So if we go back to our diagram, and oh, sorry, I did not save. So if we go back to the diagram, and if we try to use our export process action, you can see here that we have the first page of our wizard with its title and everything. It uses the same appearance because it uses the same concept as the properties view. We can go to the next page and back and forth. So now if I want, I can also extend here the default page and reuse the same definition as before. And you can see here that we have all the concepts that we showed before.
From Sirius 5, it exists another way to customize the behavior of the properties view, thanks to the override mechanism. This allows the specifier to override the behavior of an existing design without modifying it directly. For example, I can create an override text, and I will decide to override the existing name widget. So I select the name widget now. And in order to customize, I want to do this in order to customize the style of all the existing name widgets. So I'm creating under the text override a new style. And if I'm going to the format, I will just decide to change the font format to be bold and italic. Now, if we have a look to the results, if we open the properties view, we see that all the name widgets are now in bold. Okay, if we go back to the slide now, as we finished this demo.
So don't forget to help your user discover on their own features of your product. The Sirius team worked also on this for Sirius 5 in order to help you create intuitive and discoverable designers. In Sirius 5, we try to improve the fluidity of the workflow when working with a Sirius-based designer with 2 new features. The first one is a new wizard for model creation. The second one is an AIRD file editor. We will demonstrate right now these features in the next demonstration. Another possibility for you to improve the discoverability of your designer is to add an activity explorer. This is not directly provided by Sirius, but it is available in the Amalgam project, which is also part of the Eclipse modeling component. So
now we first demonstrate the new AIRD editor. So this editor is a kind of a session editor which allows the final user to manage the Sirius session by creating new representation or creating new semantic models. This editor is released in Sirius 5 as experimental and so not activated by default. So why did we introduce this editor? Imagine that it is the first time you have to use a designer based on Sirius, so you are on the Java perspective. Before Sirius 5, unless you switched to the modeling perspective, you have almost no chance to be able to open a representation easily. From Sirius 5, if now, when I expand a modeling project from any perspective, I can right-click on the representation file, and the session editor is available. In this editor, I can manage the semantic models available in the Sirius session. This is on the left side under the models section. I can also manage the representation. I can right-click on the representation file, and I can right-click on the representation file, and then it will directly open the representation. In this editor, I can also manage the semantic models available in the Sirius session. And this is available thanks to a new button, which is the new button. And in this new button, we will call a new wizard. And this wizard is designed to be easily reusable from your own Java code. On the first page, you have to select which kind of element you want to create, which kind of model you want to create. So here we select the BPM End one. On the second page, we provide the possible route for your meta model. For the BPM End model, its definitions. And finally, the last page allows you to set the file name and define where you want to create your model. You can contribute to customize the behavior of this wizard thanks to a new package, to a new extension point, which is named the package metadata extension point. And you can see that for our example, we select to display as name BPMN. We add some documentation, and we just put that we just want to, as suggested route, the definitions one. The last possibility, final solution for you to help your users to find the features available in your designer is to use the Activity Explorer. It is not included in Sirius right now, but we will work on its integration for the next year's Sirius release. So when you have an Activity Explorer defined, you will have a new menu and a new editor. This editor proposes some pages. The first one is a kind of overview, and then you can define the pages you want. For example, we decided to create an overview page, and under each page you will find some section and some hyperlink to create some diagram or some matrix, some table. On the left side, you have you can have the hyperlink to create something, and on the right side you will see all the representations that are linked to this section. You can also create some other pages which are not linked to Sirius, for example, to help your user to find some documentation, the getting started tutorials, or the user guide. As we said, for the moment, it is not included in Sirius. So you have to create, if you want to create an Activity Explorer, you have to define you have to use a new extension, you have to use another extension point, which is provided by the Amalgam project. And you will see that you have to define all the pages and all the icons that would be used and the actions that would be launched when you click on the hyperlink.
To finish, just a word on your process for creating graphical designers. Now, a team of the most talented programmers is not enough to create a great product. To develop it, you should see it in the user's light. A user should become part of the development team, part of every feature and every decision made. And the best way to achieve this is to add the role of user experience expert into the team as soon as possible. preferably on the design phase, or even better, at the very beginning when the idea is born. And your product will be usable, useful, and demanded. Hence, it will be more successful. And remember, the first design is rarely the best option. You have to taste and iterate.
So what's next for you now? When you will rework on your Sirius-based designer, remember, try to enhance the look of your designer by working on selecting consistent icons and colors. Develop smart tools to make your users feel joy when they interact with your product. Work on usability. And finally, help your user to discover the features of your designer.
Sirius 5 has been released today, and in October we will release a 5.1 version. So for this version, we are working on improving performances and improving the AIRD editor, which will not be experimental anymore. As usual, do not hesitate to give us feedback on the new features and on the one you expect. We will also be at SiriusCon to present the new features of Sirius in November. Thank you for attending this presentation, and don't hesitate if you have any question to ask them in the chat.
Thank you, Melanie and Stefan. Can you both hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to propose any questions. If there are any outstanding items that you'd like to discuss while we have Melanie and Stefan, let's make use of their time. So I'll give you a few minutes, and in the meantime, I will just take you through a couple of housekeeping things. So today is unfortunately the last day of the Eclipse Oxygen webinar series, but you can watch all of the videos on YouTube. On our homepage, there's a playlist for Eclipse Oxygen, so feel free to relive every single one of these moments. We have 6 sessions for you to enjoy and tells you all about the new release train, which shipped yesterday. With that, also, please head over to eclipse.org/oxygen and make sure that you download the new Eclipse package today. And we will be coming up with some new content over the next couple of weeks. We hope to do these webinars twice a month. So do subscribe to our channel, join the meetup, and be sure to let us know if you have any ideas. You can send an email to marketing@eclipse.org. So I will check very quickly if we have any other questions. And it doesn't look like we do. So thank you both very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.